everyone, and welcome to Level Up Live. This is Gina, and I am here to talk to you today about reading for writing. So, generally, in all of our programs, Amplify, Elevate, and Navigate, we talk about putting writing at the center of your career, at the center of your work, making sure that writing really is kind of the work that you do for yourself. And so the other thing that we talk about is thinking about writing as a whole process. So not just putting pen to paper, but everything that has to do with your writing is part of your writing system. And one of the things that we don't talk about quite as much, just generally in the world of research and in academia, is reading. So I think that a lot of us got into academia because we enjoy reading and we enjoy analyzing what we read, and of course we enjoy learning. And we've found that sometimes it's really difficult to do that reading and to do that background research because we feel like we need to rush through that to get to the writing. And so I want to just take a moment and think about how we read for pleasure versus how we read for work, and how to read with writing at the center. So, of course, when you're reading something for your research, you want to remember from the very beginning that your work is at the center of this reading, and you're not just reading another scholar's work. You are reading another scholar's work to connect to your own. And so, as a reader, you will exist in this reading relationship the whole time. And so, I'll tell you a story. I had a short stint at one point as an SAT instructor. For those of you who don't live in the US, the SAT is a test that most high schoolers need to take to get into college. And like so many other standardized tests, there's a whole industry built around knowing how to take the test. And and whether or not we agree with that whole industry, I think one of the really useful things that I got out of my time as an instructor was the idea of deciding how to read the text. And of course, I'm talking about this at sort of an SAT level, so high schoolers. But I think that idea can really expand to the way that we read. So, for example, you want to assess why you're reading any one single text. Am I reading this because someone told me I had to? Am I reading this because I want specific details? What is my expectation of what I'm going to get out of this reading? And one of the easiest ways to do that in the SAT, in this standardized test, is to read the questions first and then go back to whatever it is you're reading so that you can read with purpose. That's the way that I like to think of it, is reading with purpose. And so in our case, in our reading, we don't have SAT questions to answer at the end, but we can certainly create our own list of questions that can give our reading purpose. So to go back to the why am I reading this, you know, I want to remember that we have very little time. If we're thinking about how to fit all of our reading into a small amount of time, again, we want to think about what we are reading and why. So, what makes this specific text important to my work? Do I have a hunch about that? Have I read something about it? Is it the author that I just know writes really great stuff? And if you can't answer that question, if you don't know why this is important to your work, you may want to put it aside and start with something else, because you want to start with the stuff that is most important and move down, because you may end up missing all of those things that are unimportant, and that's fine because that's going to save you some time. The level of importance is also a really great way to decide how much time you want to spend on it. So sometimes we stumble across a hidden gem and we just, stop and enjoy it and really dig into it. But for the most part, um, if you take a look at an article or a book chapter or something, you want to give it a time limit. Say, I'll give this 1 hour tops, and you try to limit it to that amount of time because you cannot necessarily give each text your deepest work, especially if it doesn't rank as highly on just a level of importance. And then, of course, once you've got something that's completely worth your time, now you need your purpose. Now you need to establish some of the questions that you're going to ask yourself. I obviously have some suggestions, but really the most important part is that you establish what it is that you need from this text, and you create a set of questions that are consistent for all of the work that you're doing within this, whatever reading it is. And that allows you to focus back on the larger purpose, which is your writing. So a couple of suggestions, and again, these can go from very simple questions to much more complex. But the first question you might want to ask yourself is, what is this about? Can I summarize this in one sentence, two sentences, three sentences? And then how does it connect to my research? And that's the really important part, right? So I want you to think about whether this thing that you're reading, whatever text it is, does it amplify my research? Does it conflict with my research? Does it support certain ideas and not others? Or is my research actually building on this text here? What is the connection between this work and mine? And then where does it overlap and where does it diverge? Those are really important when you're going to go back to think about your relationship with these other scholars. You want to be able to find those points of overlap and divergence. And then, of course, what elements of this will you use in your research? And with all of the details that you might want for that. And then the last one, and I really like this one, is what questions or what responses do I have to this work? So again, sort of placing yourself in relation to what it is that you're reading. So, feel free to question the assumptions and the connections that this person is making, and note those, because again, that is your dialogue with this other scholar or with this other work. And so again, like I say, you can come up with your own list of questions. I would say 5 is probably about the max that you want to have, just in terms of boilerplate questions, because again, you want to make this into a process that you can do on a regular basis. One thing that people really like to do is make a table or a spreadsheet to sort of collect this information and be able to compare things. Or you can fold it into whatever note-taking system you have now. So however you collect and categorize and store this information, again, the really important part, to go back to the very beginning, is that you're reading with purpose and you are reading what you need to read and not absolutely everything in the field. And that you always keep your own ideas and your own writing at the center of the process. So thank you so much. I hope I've helped a little bit with the reading part of the writing process. And if you are watching this, definitely drop a comment in, let us know how you do your reading. And if you're watching this not live, just go ahead and use the hashtag #TeamReplay. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.